And welcome back to the Holy Hardwood podcast with Pat and Tony. Unfortunately, this evening, Pat's not going to be joining us. I'm just going to be on here, short little video, short little podcast discussing the Pels Post All-Star Rundown, kind of giving insight on the 6 games that we've seen so far post All-Star, where you saw the Pelicans defeat the Houston Rockets, New York Knicks, and splitting the series against the Indiana Pacers, while they lost to the Miami Heat, Chicago Bulls, and the first game against the Indiana Pacers. Your New Orleans Pelicans are currently sitting at 36 wins and 25 losses, as they are fifth in the Western Conference. Behind them in sixth, it's the Phoenix Suns, and they are a game back of fifth place. In seventh place is the Sacramento Kings at a game and a half back of your New Orleans Pelicans. The Dallas Mavericks are in eighth place, and they are 2 games back currently of your Pels. The Los Angeles Lakers are 3 games back, sitting in ninth, and then the Golden State Warriors are 3.5 games back of your New Orleans Pelicans. While the New Orleans Pelicans were on this 3-day off from games, we did get some help in those games where some of the teams behind us did lose, but that is something that the Pelicans shouldn't be relying on going forward in these last 21 games. They always say you have to make your own luck, and in this league, it's a make or miss league. And when I get to crunch time in the last 20 or 21 games is as long as the New Orleans Pelicans handle their business and keep stacking up wins, we don't really need to be worrying about what's behind us and rooting for teams to lose this or that. Yes, that's great if on a given night a team behind you loses like they have been in the last couple days, but none of that really matters if the Pelicans can't up the ante per se and come out and get a victory in their next one against the Toronto Raptors. Like I said, the Pelicans, as long as they handle their business and keep stacking up wins, you don't really have to worry about other teams losing behind you. This is truly go time for the Pels, last 21 games here. But I just want to kind of break down what I've seen in the first 6 post All-Star, and maybe some of the players that I've really enjoyed watching come out of the break. So I'm just going to get right into it. Somebody who's really caught my eye, and quite frankly, all year this guy's been consistent for the team. He is that backbone of the defense, and that's Herb Jones. Post All-Star break, he is averaging 14.3 points per game, 3.2 rebounds a game, and 2.5 assists per game in these first 6. Like I said, I think Herb Jones is a great word is consistency. I think all year he's been that guy who's, of course, taken the most difficult assignment on the defensive end. But even going a step further, he's taking matchups personal now. You saw in that first matchup, Halliburton kind of had his way with the New Orleans Pelicans. And right back the next game, Herb Jones said, I don't want anybody switching on to this guy. I'm going to try to do my best to hold this guy to a low amount of points and kind of really disrupt his game. And everyone saw that that's what happened when Halliburton didn't have any points and maybe he had 2 or 3 assists. So it was basically a non-factor of a guy who's, an all-star this year, all-star starter, and has put up some ridiculous stats. You see Herb Jones came out 17 points in the first game against Houston, 19 against Miami, 15 against Chicago, 15 against the Knicks, 14 against the Pacers. Last game against the Pacers, or the second game, he had 6, but like we said, he was doing his thing defensively and wasn't really too aggressive on the offensive end. I say that to say this. Yes, it's great that Herb Jones is consistent on the offensive end, and he has shown you that he can go get these 15 to 19 point games or 20 point games. But is that something the Pels really need to rely on? No. I would love for Herb to, like he's been doing, take these challenges on the defensive end. Give 38 minutes, 40 minutes if he can, of putting those guys in absolute mess on the defensive end. Is it great for us and a great necessity to have a Herb Jones who could possibly go get you that? Yes, I think he's been really consistent, especially with that outside shot. I believe since January 1st, he has the best 3-point percentage in the whole entire NBA. And that's just a credit to all the work that he's been putting in with shooting coach Fred Vinson. You've seen it, the small growth since his first year as a rookie, 2 years ago. Last year, he made a jump, and in this year, uh, not much more you can say about Herb, and he's shooting 42.5% from the 3-point line. Um, like I said, you want Herb to shoot those open threes now. I think he's in a good enough rhythm where the open corner three or the wing three is very good. Um, and that's a high percentage shot for us if they're going to be leaving it open. I would kind of stray away from some of the other stuff. Yes, it's good and great that he's getting 9-10 attempts per game, um, and that's good and great if that's coming in transition, really attacking the rim because we want Herb to attack the rim if that's a viable option since he is shooting 85% from the free throw line. So I really like that when he's aggressive and going downhill and really making his presence known in the painted area, just because he shoots it at a high percentage from the free throw line. But you know, you've seen him basically in every game besides one impacting the game offensively, defensively, and you see that in the plus minus stats. A plus 36. He was a minus 8 in the one game that he wasn't in the positive. He was a plus 10, a plus 17, a plus 8, and a plus 30 in the last game against Indiana, and you just see him making a mark on the game in every aspect, and that's what you love to see. This is a third year guy who, you know, has kind of taken that leadership role in a sense. Not so much vocal, but just the work of saying, I'm going to take the assignment every night of the best player. Brandon, Zion, CJ, Trey, you go get yours offensively. Don't worry about it. I'm going to try my best to anchor this defensive down. Um, and that's been a really big thing because just by the eye test, I feel Herb Jones has played the the hardest and the toughest for longest periods of time since this post All-Star break, and you can really see it on the floor. And it's something that I hope you know is here to stay these last 21 games and into the playoffs. Uh, if the Pelicans are fortunate enough to get that far, because he's really brought it these 6 games and has been a real difference maker in all of the games. The second guy I'm going to talk about is, someone who we've been talking about all year long and, quite frankly, has not had the best year to his standards, to the Pels standards, to my standards, to anybody who is a big proponent of this team. And that's Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy is someone who's averaged around 12 a game. That's down from last year, shooting at about 33-34%, has just not gotten that rhythm post injury from the outside, which, I think he's taken a lot of tough shots where, you've kind of seen recently him attack the rim, get some easy ones, and then that leads into a couple easier shots when he starts taking those first couple threes. But I think there's just been so much pressure on him, and he's been kind of in a downward slump in the shooting department pre All Star, just by I think him just pressing too much, taking a lot of long contested shots, which yes he can make those. He's proven that he can make those. The transition ones as well, and you know. But at the end of the day, it is a confidence thing in the NBA. With everybody with any sport, particularly if you're not feeling right, those shots aren't as crisp, are not as confident shooting. You might change a thing here or there with your mechanics, but I really think in these first 6 games he's proven it. 15.3 points, 6.2 rebounds, 2.8 assists. um, uh, his 3-point shooting is getting closer to that 37, 38, 39 point range, and you've kind of seen some big games from him. The New York game he had 26, the last Indiana game he had 28, and kind of those other games he's around that 12 to 15 range, which is always nice. And ultimately the X factor, I believe, for this Pelicans team, for this team to do anything remotely moving forward with the guys currently on the team is Brandon, Zion. Those guys are going to do what they do. But for them to truly open up the floor and to make life a living heck for other teams is Trey Murphy, hitting 4, 5, 6 threes a night. There's just too many talented people that the Pelicans have to guard. And whenever he's rolling too, when he's getting you 15 to 20, along with Brandon Zion and whatever CJ gets you and what Herb's been giving you as of late, like that becomes a team that's just really, really tough to guard on that defensive end for any team, regardless who it is. But another big point from Trey that I've really loved to see is that 6.2 rebound number. Um, a guy historically who has not been the best rebounder, given his size, athleticism, length. You would love to see a guy like Trey Murphy average 6 rebounds a game because he can for surely do that. It's kind of been just a big burden on Jonas this whole year. He's been that main guy getting rebounds, and the next two guys are Brandon and Zion at a little over 5 each, and quite frankly, I think that's a little low for them, and that's undervaluing their size, strength, length, and I usually see when the more Zion rebounds or when the more Brandon rebounds collectively, their games are quicker. There's more decisiveness on the offensive end. They're getting the ball out and they're going. Whereas if they're not crashing the rebound, we're kind of losing a couple seconds here or there in these possessions. So I think anybody that they can get confidence by getting some rebounds, getting a couple assists here or there, and then hopefully your shots fall from there. That's just something you love to see. So I've been really impressed with Trey Murphy. We all know that he has this in him. Has had a little bit of a down year and a step back year, but given the injury, you just never know how people are going to bounce back from those. So, hopefully these last 25 games post All-Star and into the playoffs, like I said, if we're fortunate enough to make it, he's finally reached that step, and then it becomes a whole different, New Orleans Pelicans team with what he's doing out there on the floor. The third and final guy, just really impressed with. None other than Bi. We kind of said this, Pat and I. Zion and Brandon needed to come out and be the guys for this team in this last stretch of games. And historically, Brandon, the last couple years, or especially as being a Pelican, you've seen post All-Star him put up anywhere between 25 to 27 points per game. In that last 20 25 games in the playoffs, you've seen him rise to the occasion when it matters. Do I like saying that Brandon's had a down year this year? No, I don't. I truly think that Brandon is more capable of kind of what he's been doing post All-Star than what he had been doing at the beginning of this year. um, Pat and I also touched about on the last podcast that maybe the Pelicans had a strict idea in their head by saying we need these guys to play as many games as possible in the pre-All-Star era, get some games under their belts with Zion, Brandon, and CJ, but at the same time, kind of get them to be the healthiest that they can be coming into this last stretch of 20, 25 games with a playoff, uh, run on the horizon. And uh, don't know if that's the case. Don't know if that really happened. Um, but a Brandon Ingram averaging 21 and a half, basically pre All-Star. That's not him. We've seen him even last year at the end of the year averaging 24 a night, in the playoffs averaging 27 a night, 6 and 6 basically. He has it in him. Granted, there's more guys around him. They've kind of had the you know given on a certain night it's going to be someone's night and someone's not night, and so that's all good and great. But I've really been impressed with Bi in the 4 games since he missed the first 2 due to illness, averaging 27 and a half points, 5.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists. Like I said, the rebound numbers basically up to 6. You would love to see that to go to 6.5, maybe even 7. Same thing with the assists. As long as he's impacting the game in those areas as well as his scoring, this Pels team becomes pretty unguardable, especially him being aggressive like he has been in these first 4 games that he's been back on the floor. And you see it. It's a different mindset. It's a different Bi. He's coming out to basically kill, and that's what I've liked to see. Have his games necessarily been the cleanest, from the floor, like the Knicks game and the first game against Indiana? No, it was not. But you've seen just a different mentality from the guy. Kind of his his thing, what he does post All-Star, is he really gets in a good rhythm, is just ultra focused, and that's nothing but great news for the Pelicans. Um, just by game, first game had 22 points, second game against New York, 24 points, Indiana, the first game, 30, and the second game against Indiana, 34, where he had just it amazing game in that one. Saw a couple fall early in that Indiana game and really got on into a good rhythm. And this is someone where when he gets in rhythm and he's hitting his shots, he becomes that three level scorer. He's pretty unguardable. And then when they start to change defensive on him, he's one of the best passers in the game. I truly believe that. And when he's finding his guys and they're hitting shots, you see these leads of 20, 25 points balloon up, pretty quickly. But you know, I always go by attempts, especially when Brandon's being aggressive. First game, he had 16 attempts. Second game, 18. Third, 20. And then this last game against Indiana, 21. You see he's making a conscious effort to trying to get his shot, but he's also getting his other teammates involved, where he's had basically 6 assists in all those games, besides one of them. Um, he's also coming out aggressively on the 3 point line. I think where everybody's wanted him to kind of live and take more responsibility from that end. Um, yeah, he's not always going to make it. He's sitting at 36, and a half or something, percentage from three so far right now this year. But you've seen post All-Star, he is getting the attempts. Currently, he was probably shooting maybe 3.5, maybe close to 4 pre All Star, but he's up to 5 attempts per game and at shooting it at a good percentage. Like I said, shooting around 39% post All Star. So he's rounding into form. Another area is that I judge him on is free throws. You can also see with the attempts amount how aggressive he is being, because just through the averages this year, averaging about 4.5 free throws a game. Um, you know, that just tells me he's not being his most aggressive self. Um, and he's shooting anywhere between 78, 79, kind of fluctuating in between there throughout the year from the free throw line. And that's not up to Brandon Ingram's standards by any means. He's a guy that we've come accustomed to hitting 85 to 89% from the line in his career as a Pelican. So definitely a down year in those statistics, but definitely a good sign from him now that he is attempting 8.5 free throws post All Star break, and he's hitting it at an 88% clip. So I see the focus, I see the effort on him trying to get to the basket, get these foul calls, and he's making it ultra hard for these teams. What I always need for him to do and be conscious of are those turnovers, and he's also gotten better at that as the games have gone on. Yeah, that first Chicago game after the All Star break, 9 turnovers, not good enough for a Brandon Ingram. You need to be held to a higher standard, and he knows that. 5 turnovers in the next game, but then 1 and 2 in the 2 Indiana games. So all of that looks like it's getting fixed. Um, I love the aggressive, like I said, on the attempts of shots per game, the amount of threes. Seems like he's getting in a nice rhythm on shooting more, catch and shoots, more pull up threes. And like I said, when he's getting to the line and he sees a few go through, like the last couple games, like we've said, he becomes automatic from the mid range and his driving and his 3 level scoring. And he's sitting at a plus 60 in these first 4 games. So I think he's really taken on that challenge as being that guy for the New Orleans Pelicans. And, I can only hope for the next 21 games he continues this. Obviously, every night's not going to be perfect, but it seems like this is the time of the year Brandon Ingram wakes up. Along with Zion, I really thought he came out aggressive those first 3 games or so that Brandon was out, and you even saw his attempts go to 20 to 22, um, per game, getting to the rim. So I've really liked that from him. It's been down a little bit the last couple games, but that's going to happen sometimes when Brandon's got it going like that. But I've liked him being aggressive and kind of setting up the team and getting it off the rim. I would like to see him, like I said, with Brandon, get a little more rebound hungry um, for the glass because it just starts our offense quicker. If any of those guys can get the ball out of the rim, it becomes a very hard thing when those guys are coming downhill in the rhythm that they're coming down to, especially with our guys shooting the way that they are shooting currently from the field. But should be an interesting 21 games. Like I said at the top, 3-3. You always wish you could go better. A 4-2 or a 5-1, but that just wasn't in the cards. Um, a Miami Heat team came in uh, into your home house and kind of beat you up a little bit. A game where you probably should have won against Chicago. Um, at the end of the day, DeMar DeRozan had a great showing in that one, and there were some things here there, player wise, coaching wise, in that one. And then that Indiana game, you know, wasn't our best showing by any means, but I loved our fight in that game. We got down 20 early, and you saw us claw back. It just seemed like we just couldn't get over the hump when we would get it to a 5-point game or a 4-point game. And then once we got back at home, took care of business, Indiana again, second game in a row, and kind of really put it on them. So going forward, we got the Toronto Raptors coming up. They're a little banged up, so definitely a game that you need to win.